In February 1996, a quiet apartment complex in Idaho Falls became the scene of one of the most brutal crimes in the city's history. An 18-year-old woman named Angie Dodge was found murdered in her own bedroom. The attack was violent, personal, and horrifying. For more than 20 years, the case haunted her family, shattered lives, and exposed deep failures in the justice system. An innocent man spent years in prison. A real killer walked free. And only science, decades later, finally told the truth. This is the story of Angie Dodge. Angie Dodge was born in 1977. She grew up in Idaho Falls, Idaho, a small, close-knit community where violent crime was rare. Angie was known as friendly, outspoken, and independent. She had just turned 18 and was beginning adult life. In early 1996, she was living alone in a modest apartment at 325 Elm Street, not far from downtown Idaho Falls. She worked locally, had friends nearby, and stayed in touch with her mother, Carol Dodge, regularly. No one imagined that her life would end there, alone in her bedroom. On February 13th, 1996, Carol Dodge went to Angie's apartment after failing to reach her by phone. When she entered, something felt wrong. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. In Angie's bedroom, Carol found her daughter lying on the bed. Angie had been brutally stabbed and sexually assaulted. The scene showed signs of a struggle. There was blood. The attack was savage. Police from the Idaho Falls Police Department arrived and quickly secured the scene. The city had rarely seen anything like it. From the beginning, detectives believed this was a personal attack, not random, and they were under enormous pressure to find the killer fast. Detectives collected physical evidence, including biological material that would later become crucial. But in 1996, DNA testing was limited and slow. Investigators began questioning Angie's friends, co-workers, and acquaintances. One name soon stood out: Chris Tapp. Chris was a young man who knew Angie casually. They were not close friends, but they had crossed paths socially. Police brought Chris in for questioning. What followed would change his life forever. Chris Tapp was interrogated for many hours over multiple days. There was no physical evidence tying him to the crime. No DNA, no fingerprints, no witnesses. But detectives believed he knew more than he was saying. During long interrogations, Chris was pressured repeatedly. He was told that if he just admitted being there, even if he didn't commit the murder, things would go easier for him. Eventually, exhausted and confused, Chris gave a false confession. He said he was present during the crime, but claimed another man committed the murder. That other man was never identified. No evidence supported Chris's story. Still, it was enough. In 1998, Chris Tapp was convicted of rape and murder. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years. Angie Dodge's family believed justice had been served, but the truth was far from it. Over time, serious problems with the case became impossible to ignore. Chris Tapp's confession did not match the crime scene. He got key details wrong, details the real killer would have known. Most importantly, the DNA did not match Chris Tapp. Prosecutors argued that another unknown man must have committed the murder. But years passed. No second suspect was ever found. Chris Tapp maintained his innocence, and Angie's mother, Carol Dodge, began asking hard questions. What if the wrong man was in prison? Carol Dodge did something rare. Instead of focusing only on punishment, she focused on truth. She pushed for advanced DNA testing as technology improved. She worked with innocence advocates and investigators. Carol believed two things could be true at once: that her daughter deserved justice, and that an innocent man should not pay for the crime. Her persistence kept the case alive. In 2017, after new reviews and overwhelming doubt, Chris Tapp's conviction was vacated. He was released from prison after 20 years behind bars. Later, in 2019, Chris Tapp was officially exonerated. The state of Idaho acknowledged that he was wrongfully convicted. But one question remained. If Chris Tapp didn't kill Angie Dodge, who did? That answer came through familial DNA testing. Investigators uploaded the unknown DNA profile to a public genealogy database. The results pointed to a family line, and eventually to one man, Brian Lee Dripps. Dripps had lived near Angie's apartment in 1996. He had no connection to Chris Tapp. When police obtained his DNA in 2019, it was a match. Confronted with the evidence, Brian Dripps confessed. He admitted to entering Angie Dodge's apartment and killing her. For 23 years, he had lived freely. In 2021, Brian Dripps pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. For Angie Dodge's family, the truth finally came out. For Chris Tapp, justice came too late to return lost years, but it came. And for Idaho Falls, the case became a warning, a reminder of how easily the system can fail, and how powerful truth can be when people refuse to let go. Angie Dodge was 18 years old when her life was taken. She did not get the future she deserved, but her story changed the system. It exposed the dangers of false confessions, the importance of DNA science, and the courage it takes to admit mistakes. Justice was delayed, but it was not denied. This was TruthTrove Stories. Thank you for listening.